our meeting. Welcome to our May 13th Beach Mountain Town Council meeting. Nice attendance. Thank you for everyone attending. I need a motion to call this meeting to order.
Motion. Second.
Very good. Item 2, adoption of the agenda. Need a motion to adopt the agenda.
Motion.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Item 2 passes. Cyclone?
Yes, sir.
You're up, sir.
Thanks, sir. Thank you, Bob. Afternoon, everyone. Especially Dr. and Ms. Murray here. Good to have y'all here. The scripture for today is Psalm 121. I lift up my eyes into the hills from which cometh my help. This is my favorite verse. And show you how much it's favorite, I've already got my stone down at Bounty Oak Christian Fellowship Memory Garden, and that's engraved in there. But I changed it a little bit from I lift up my hills until I lift up the mountains, because that little spot next to my wife there, we're looking right at Beach Mountain. So y'all ain't gonna get rid of me completely.
Is the date filled in? You got a date?
You may figure it out. Before I start the devotion, I'd like to thank a bunch of people. A couple of weeks ago, I had a little medical emergency, and I had an appointment with Dr. Kimball, and I wasn't able to go, so I called and rescheduled it, I thought. I got the voicemail. So then about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, I had a text from my son in Florida. He said, you better get a hold of Dr. Kimball. He's calling me. They said, he can't get you. He's been trying to get you on the phone. So then I look up, and there's Mr. Pudney, the Beach Mountain Police Department, the Fire Department, EMS, and all at my front door. And so Dr. Kimball called Bob here and told me to come check on me since I didn't answer the phone. For some reason, my phone wasn't working. But anyway, long story short, they checked me out. I guess something didn't look right, so they put me in the ambulance into the hospital. And all the way in that back of that ambulance, I'm thinking, oh Lord, you have really blessed me. Here I am, all these people here taking care of me and looking out for me. I said, where else in the world would anybody do that? So anyway, they got me over and stuck a bunch of needles in and all that, got my vitals back where it's supposed to be. But at 10 o'clock at night, the police department sends a police officer in a car over to bring me home. So I'm thinking, all you people, I thank you so much, and boy, we're so fortunate to be here at this place. And with that, our program today is on a place called Dunkirk. You've probably heard of. World War II, May of 1940, things were not going good at all for the Allies. We were not in the war then, but things had gotten so bad that the Germans had pushed the British and the French and the Belgian all the way back to the English Channel, a little town called Dunkirk in France. And there was 300,000 soldiers there. They were run out of, the Allies, they run out of food, ammunition, everything. So Hitler has come, for some reason, he paused for 2 or 3 days before he attacked them, pushed them into the English Channel. And these guys, they knew they were going to be killed, captured, prisoner, what. But Hitler failed to take advantage of the situation, and he didn't think about the British, how tough and stubborn they were, a man named Churchill and some of the others. So they got together this brilliant scheme to send a bunch of boats across the English Channel, probably about 30 miles wide, to rescue these soldiers. But they had a problem. The big boats couldn't get into the harbor there. It wasn't deep enough. And so somebody came up with a bright idea. Well, let's get a bunch of small boats. So they put the word out, and the citizens of England came up with this. They gave them a time, told them where to go, and they wound up with 800 small boats. And they were all the way from tugboats to ferries to fishing boats to yachts. In fact, it was two old boys that said left a bar, and they knew somebody had a boat, and they went hot wired it and stole it and took over, and they're given credit for rescuing about 50 of the British soldiers. But they in doing this was one of the turning points of the war, because if they lost 300,000 troops, that was about it. They had nothing left. So anyway, they had these 800 boats, and they made trips all day long back and forth. The small boats would go into the harbor there, beach, and they'd bring the soldiers out and put them on big boats back and forth. Some guys even tied rubber laugh rafts behind their boat so they could. But this went on for a couple of days, and they wound up rescuing over 300,000, and which these guys later on, they were trained and came back once they had ammunition and they had supplies and all. They were very instrumental in a few years later going ashore D-Day, when they did wind up kicking Hitler's backside pretty good there. But that's one of the highlights of the war, really one of the turning points, most historians will tell you. Would you bow your head, please? Lord, we thank you so much for this special place, these special people here. And we ask that you will be with our law enforcement, the EMTs, Lord, all the officers involved in this. Pray, Lord, you'll be with our council. We ask you to be with the president, our governor, and I ask that you'll continue to bless the United States of America and Beech Mountain. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Cyclone.
Thank you.
Stand up for the pledge of allegiance, please. Pledge of allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so this is a public comment. This is a time for public to address their elected officials on issues that are not on the agenda. The town council is interested in hearing your concerns. However, speakers should not expect the council action or deliberation on items brought forth during the public comment period. Up first for public comment is Linda Strong.
Linda's from 211 Wild Daisy Lane. I just wanted to, in case some of you weren't there, talk about the planning meetings at Buckeye last week. I was able to go to all of them, except I had a standing appointment at Fred's one afternoon, so I had to miss that. But anyway, I went in at skeptical, and after having talked to friends, we were all afraid that they were going to come in and want to make us Dollywood or do something outrageous, put a Ferris wheel or something up. And I ended up being very pleased. Very, very professional group, very experienced. They started off basing what they might do here on the history of what they've done before, but as it evolved over the few days, they got to know us and they got to know Beech Mountain. And they made comments to themselves, not to themselves, but not to everybody, like, this place is different, and this is not a community, it's a family. And they get us. And it's probably not going to happen in my lifetime, but I just want everybody to know it's going to be okay. And they've got some really good ideas about traffic for the ski season too. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Kathy? Ms. Bubash?
Hi, I'm Kathy Bubash. I live at 415 St. Andrews, and I'm here. It's not about the town, but it's about St. Jude. So Beech Mountain Club, we're having a fundraiser. We've done it for 2 years. This is our 3rd year, and we're raising money for St. Jude. So I've already gone to a lot of businesses and stuff, but if any of you would like to donate just to St. Jude, I have flyers out there. I have a QR code. You just scan the QR code. You can You can donate directly to my fundraiser. I signed up for the marathon, or a half marathon, whatever it is, in December, and I've been doing it. My family and I have been trying to raise money for St. Jude for over 10 years. And we usually go to Memphis to do it, but I wanted to, in the last few years I've done it. I've organized it with help at Beach Mountain Club, and the first year we raised 14,000 plus. Last year we raised over 19,000, and I'm hoping to break the 20,000 mark this year. And I know everybody's been struggling with the hurricane and everything, but St. Jude it's just a fantastic organization. They help all the families that have children that are going through treatment for cancer. I had a nephew who died from cancer. He went through like 10 years of treatment and finally passed away when he was 15. And they weren't there to help, but you know, Ronald McDonald was there. They always have organizations, but St. Jude has just been, you know, a world apart. And they share all their findings with the world, actually, all their cures. And they've gone from 20% cures to over 80% of all the cancers that the children have, and they're still working on it. So I have flyers up there if you want to scan it on your way out, or if you want to talk to me afterwards, I'll be around. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kathy. I'm not sure if I pronounced this correctly, and I apologize. Oates Riley? Is that right, Oates?
Yeah, that's my last name.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, I said it backwards.
Good evening. My name is Riley Oates. I work with the United States Small Business Administration's Office of Disaster Recovery. I just wanted to come out and make sure everybody is aware of our disaster recovery program. We offer very low-cost disaster loans both to homeowners, small businesses, non-for-profits, renters. We cover up to $500,000 for homeowners and up to $2 million for small businesses and non-for-profits. For homeowners, we can cover any kind of damage to their real estate. If they've had more than 50% damage to their real estate, we can refinance their mortgage. We can provide loans to help people relocate if they have somewhere else they'd like to be, if they have family in Charlotte or family in Texas or wherever that may be. For small businesses, we have two types of loans. One is a physical damage loan that covers your real estate, your equipment, machinery, supplies, inventory. We also have an economic injury loan, so that's a working capital loan for small businesses. It helps keep the lights on, keep the payroll going, keep the doors open. The deadline for our physical damage loans was April 27th. However, we are currently in a 60-day grace period. So for anybody who hasn't applied, or if you have applied and you haven't heard anything, we've had a number of our applications get withdrawn, which is neither accepted nor declined, but it's missing some kind of information. So the application was withdrawn so that we don't decline it. Somewhere like 40% of applications have been withdrawn. So I really encourage people that if they haven't heard anything back and they have applied, follow up on that. Our deadline for the economic injury is going to be June 30th. We cannot cover secondary homes. If you have a boat or something, we do cover Airbnbs. That's a business. Our rates are as low as 2.8% for homeowners, 4% for businesses, 3.25% for non-for-profits. It's over a 30-year term. There's no interest for 1 year. There's no payments for 1 year. And if your insurance hasn't settled yet, we can provide you with a loan, and then you just pay us back from the insurance settlement.
What about municipalities?
So we don't cover municipalities. We do cover homeowners associations, and we also cover 100% volunteer fire companies. So those are two non-for-profits that right now we've heard that there's a need, that they need funds to rebuild, but they're not sure, they're not covered by FEMA, so they're thinking, where do we go? They can come to the Small Business Administration. We can provide an extremely low-cost, affordable loan. That's all, and I'll give my card to your city manager here. If you guys have any questions at all, I think I did previously provide some information to your,
Thank you, Riley.
the girl out front there at the desk.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Valerie Jones?
Good afternoon, council members and neighbors. My name is Valerie Jones, and I serve on the Beach Towers Condominium Board at 1005 Beach Mountain Parkway. We're right at the resort entrance. I'm here to respectfully urge you to reconsider the town's exclusive contract with Republic Trash Services for trash collection. Over the past year, our experience with Republic has been deeply frustrating and unacceptable. After Hurricane Helene, they failed to service us for 5 consecutive weeks with no communication. When we reached out, they claimed a previously resolved issue with the utility line was the cause, despite having serviced us after that fix. They made that decision unilaterally without notice while continuing to charge us for the services never rendered. During that time, my fellow board members and I were literally dumpster diving, pulling out items that would not attract bears to free up more space in the dumpster. I personally loaded up my own truck twice with garbage and brought it to the town convenience center so that we would have room in our dumpster. Just to keep our property safe and clean, that's why we did it. When I finally spoke with a customer service agent to demand a refund, I was told that issuing one would result in trash outside the dumpster not being picked up, a dangerous condition for our mountain community. When I explained we did not have overflowing trash due to our concern about bears, his response was, "Oh, I'm in Indiana. We don't have that problem." Even after that situation was supposedly resolved, we continued to face winter service failures. We were told roads weren't plowed, while I watched plow trucks and Republic trucks pass us by. Other excuses included being too cold for the hydraulics and unplowed access, even with minimal snowfall. This is not just an inconvenience, it's a public health and safety issue. And what's more frustrating is that I tried to switch to a reliable local provider, Appalachian Waste, only to be told they're barred from servicing Beach Mountain due to the town's contract. Why are we being forced into a monopoly with a company that consistently fails to meet its obligations? I'd rather pay more for reliable service and have the freedom to choose a provider who stands by their commitment. I urge the council to reconsider this contract and allow for competition. Our community deserves better. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, this time I'd like to introduce Aaron Moss. Aaron is Lisa McCrae's ski and snowboard coach. Aaron, would you like to come up and introduce yourself and tell us about what you guys won this year?
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much, Mayor and Town Council, for acknowledging me and allowing me to come up here to speak to everybody. As I said, my name is Aaron Moss. I'm the coach of the ski and snowboard team there at Lees McCrae College. For those of you that aren't aware, Lees McCrae, for decades, had a pretty successful alpine ski program at the college. For reasons that were unfolding at the time, that program ended in 2004, but in 2016, the administration saw fit to allow me to come in there and start the program up again. The program is an alpine ski, snowboard, freestyle program, all-encompassing, and the team competes in the USCSA, United States Collegiate Ski and Snowboard Association. We're in the Southeastern Series, but it's a nationwide organization, the largest collegiate organization in the nation. The nation has for alpine ski, they have a varsity program, an NCAA Division I program, but there isn't such a thing for snowboarding. And the vast majority of alpine skiers in college compete in USCSA. As Widener Abernathy there was referencing, so we have done pretty well in the last 4 years of the program, winning 12 national titles. We actually just graduated our senior class this past weekend. It was kind of special to me, as when they came in as freshmen, that year we won our first national championship. And so they've been a part of every single national championship that we have won while they're there. So it was kind of a special class to see graduate. But the good news is, just like every year, we have a pretty good crop of incoming freshmen for next year, and we hope to continue that success. One thing that people don't often realize is that unlike the NCAA, where there's Division I, Division II, Division III based on the size of your school, that does not exist in the USCSA. So Lee's Craig College competes against every other college in the country. So we compete against UC Boulder, Montana State, Utah State, all the big schools. And so one of my favorite things to do is to explain to people, just like for this last year. So when our men's team won the Giant Slalom National Championship, so in third place was UCLA. And there were about 48,000 students. In second place was University of Wisconsin-Madison at over 50,000 students. And in first place, your national champions, Lee's Craig College, 900 students. I often get the question, how in the world can a small school in the southeast of North Carolina compete, and not only compete, but do pretty well, against all the other colleges in the nation? First and foremost, we take it seriously. We practice 3 nights a week. We have strength and conditioning. I have always treated it as a varsity program. It's always been a club program until this past year. It was great. The president saw fit to make us a varsity sport at Lees McRae. So we are now only the second varsity snowboard team in the nation. So we take it pretty seriously. We run it like it's a varsity sport. But in addition to that, 2 other very important reasons why we have achieved the success that we have. One is because we have a very strategic relationship with Beach Mountain Resort. Now I'm a full-time employee there at the resort as well, so that helps. But also, Ryan Costin and Beach Mountain Resort have allowed us to be able to work on their slopes 3 nights a week and practice alpine competitions on their slopes. We practice in the park, we practice a lot, and the resort affords us that ability to do it. And not only that, but being just a few miles away and 15 minutes away is wonderful for those athletes and us being able to practice as much. The other reason why we have been able to be so successful and grown the program so much in the last few years is our community support. Not just like moments like this, but in the past, as a club sport, we have not been able to operate. We have not had the funds to operate. We traveled just like a couple weeks or a month ago, we got back from Mount Bachelor in Oregon. That's where Nationals was. That's an expensive trip to send an entire team out there for 10 days and then come back. The reason why we have been able to do these things is because of community support. The fundraisers we do, the free meals we get at local restaurants and other things, the fundraisers we do, like having a film premiere up at Beach Mountain every single year and the money we raise from that, a raffle and everything else like that. So the community support has been absolutely remarkable, and we would not have achieved the success that we have had if we didn't have the community support. Along those lines, and those of you here, if you would like to help out in the future, there's definitely opportunities for you to do that. One of the things that's important, and one of the reasons why the mayor asked me to be here, is that this is all for the kids. It's the college students that are going to class, they're working, and also finding time to practice 3 nights a week, travel 2 more nights for competitions. And so the more money that we can raise to afford them, then it's going to be easier for them to compete. And that's one of the things we plan on doing for the future, is continuing to compete and continue to represent not just our community here, but the entire Southeast region at the highest levels in the nation year after year. I thank you all for your support, and thank you very much, Council, for having me here. And if anybody has any questions about the program or anything, you always feel free to reach out to me.
Do you think your profession at the ski resort helps make you creative with having a winning team?
As Mayor's alluding to there, so my other full-time job, I run the brewery operations there. And so one of the aspects of my job is recruiting. Along those lines, so with the exception of last year I had an individual snowboard athlete on my team, Luke Cook, who came from Wisconsin. Other than that, every single member of our team, our national championship teams, have all come from either Eastern Tennessee, North Carolina, or Virginia. So it's not like we're recruiting kids from Utah and Vermont and stuff. We're doing this all with local youth as well. But not necessarily directly. However, when I'm out there recruiting and I'm talking to the parents and I tell the parents what I do, and they're like, oh, well then we should probably visit the college. I say, absolutely, we'll take you up to Beach Mountain Resort and show you around as well.
So that's pretty cool. You know, I just want to reiterate what Aaron said, that Lees McRae, little podunk, Lees McRae, and I graduated there a few years ago. You know, 900 students, and he's competing against universities that have 30, 40, 50,000 students, and to be able to have the record that you have and the success, you know, it bodes well for your commitment and Lisa McCrae's commitment, and the same with the ski resort, Beach Mountain Ski Resort. So thank you for everything. And again, they do community fundraisers. And is there a website that Lisa McCrae has for their sports program that they can go to?
So if you just go to lmc.edu, and then you'll see on the top taskbar, it'll say athletics. Click on that. It'll say sports. You click on ski and snowboard. That'll give you some additional information about the program and some of our historical successes and everything. And it also has my contact information on there as well. So if you have any ideas for me or the team, or you're like, hey, I know somebody, or I have a screen printing business and I will print some t-shirts for you, things like that, just let us know.
So I was going to read this entire resolution, but I asked Aaron to keep it under 2 minutes, and he didn't.
It's a subject I'm fond of.
I'm going to abbreviate. This is a resolution congratulating Lisa McCrae ski and snowboard team for multiple USCSA national champions. Thank you. Very good. Thank you, Aaron.
You need to mention the special member of the team.
No, he should name it.
Yeah, you
Chess
bet.
Chess, you on the ski and snowboard team?
Well, I sent
Yeah, this
I sent a copy of the resolution to my son and said, you know, you're out of town watching your girlfriend's cat, you should probably be here tonight. And he's like, I'm watching the cat.
I forgot. I'm sorry. I apologize. Councilman Stanford, his son, was one of the top 5. Or top 1.
Somewhere,
Where
it
was
was at 3 in
Aaron, where was
slopestyle, right?
Yeah.
In the nation.
Yeah, in real jam.
Yeah, so Stanford,
Nationally.
One of the top snowboarders in the nation.
Stanford's son is one of the top snowboarders in the country. So,
Right here on Beach. And he's graduated. That's the best part. That's the best part. You can have all the trophies you want. He's graduated.
yeah.
you got a raise.
The big one.
Next, I'd like to introduce Art Sabatis and Andrew Villarreal. So, for those that don't know, we have a steakhouse that's coming to Eagle's Nest, and it is called the Epic Chop House. Art, would you like to tell us a little bit about it?
Thank you, man. Appreciate the invite. First
Yes,
of all,
sir.
my name is Art Sabatis. I've been in this community for about 9 years. Built a home in Eagles Nest in 2016 when there were less than 40 homes there. And I'm sorry. Let me bend over here. So, get better. Sorry about that. I'm used to hunching over and not firing up. So I've been in the community for about 9 years, and I've been part of the Eagles Nest board for about 8.5 years, gone through the developer. Now we are owned by a friend by the people that made the transition about 2 years ago. So it's a new era at Eagles Nest. We're reaching out to our surrounding communities, and we want to understand exactly our impact on your folks and how we can work with each other and making sure that we do the right thing going forward. Because I live here full-time, I'm a resident full-time. I'm also a member of Beach Mountain Country Club and bought property here as well too. So I'm vested in the community. So I'm not just here to leave, so I care about the community. So about 3 years ago, set out to raise funds through a special assessment, which is never a fun thing. And we were able to raise funds to build a restaurant in our community. 2 years, a little bit longer than that because of Helene, were completed, and very proud to say that we have an amazing restaurant that we'd like to offer outside residents from our community an opportunity to dine in our restaurant. It's a membership restaurant, and we're offering 500 memberships. I think the mayor came and visited, and I think you were intrigued on what we were having offered. The building has about 285 seats between inside and out. The memberships are $1,500 annually, and that gets you into the back gate, the front gate, during operational hours. Also on Saturdays, if you happen to be dining there, we have a concert that goes on at the same time. It's a beautiful amphitheater that we have. I'm sure you're welcome to attend the concert while you're dining as well too. So it's part of the area that we're in as far as the restaurant. So we set out to find an operator, and there was a gentleman that started Epic Chop House about 10 years ago, which I knew from his former More Life as a restaurant owner in Hunterville, North Carolina. We talked, and we came up to an agreement, and now we have Epic Chop House as our operator. So it's an interesting situation because we own the building as a community, but we've hired an outside company to run the operations of the restaurant. So they run it just like they do all their other 4 restaurants. This will be their 5th restaurant. So we're not in the business of hospitality or food so much so we wanted to make sure that we had somebody that was running it, that was going to do a fine job of representing the community and also the brand of the Eagles Nest as well. So with that, I'm going to introduce Andrew here and let you know a little bit about the restaurant, but I ask you to please join us in our community. Our restaurant is open to members, and we'd love to reciprocate with the opportunity that I've had to join your country club with an opportunity with an Eagles Nest as well. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Art.
All right, my name is Andrew Villarreal. I'm the general manager of Epic Chop House in Eagles Nest. I've been with the company for 3 years now, starting off in my Mooresville location. And just correct Art, it's 15 years that Larry started it. So 15 years, Epic Chop House has been going strong in Mooresville and getting bigger and bigger every year. And this is now our 5th location. And you know, we just really want to integrate with the community. You know, we're happy to be here. I'm happy to move here. It's been amazing. The restaurant is elevated service. It is fine dining, but at a more affordable price than, you know, going to Ruth Chris. You're getting value out of everything. We have big plates that you're always going to have food to take home, and a great wine list as well. So we're excited. We want everybody in there. Like Art said, the restaurant is beautiful. The views are amazing. I mean, you're at 4,500 feet looking over everything. And it really is, there's 85 seats outside, so there's plenty of seating outside for people to go and enjoy a great night, a great day, you know, beautiful anniversaries, anything like that. So we really hope that you guys join.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
I've heard about the Epic Chop House, and now y'all have access to the gate, to us. I live here on the town. To gain access to the Eagles Nest, we have to have a code. We can't go up there and see what it's about, or?
So let me answer that.
Okay.
So what would you like to see the restaurant before you join?
That'd be nice.
Sure. So if you come in through the front entrance, just announce yourself and say, I would like to go and check out Epic Chop House. And they have a phone number that you can make an appointment with. And they'll be more than happy to take you through and show you the restaurant.
Okay, so we don't have access to the gate.
You have access to the front once they let
I
you.
know that. I meant the back gate where I'm.
No, it's a private meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anything you're leading to that I can answer? Because I think you're leading with more questions than answers.
Well, I've just been curious why you have access to us and we don't have access to you. Through the gate.
She's talking about the one-way street.
That goes both ways. We come here and we go to your community.
Okay, I just wanted to have an introduction with the steakhouse.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
And so since Stanford's son has graduated, Stanford has 2 memberships.
Yeah.
So, if anyone wants to have dinner there, have Stanford take care of there.
Thank you, Councilman.
Yeah, just let us know what time.
Okay, item 7, consent agenda. I need a motion to accept the consent agenda.
Motion.
Need a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Old business. Item 8.1, I need a motion to discuss the solid waste franchise extension, and I've asked Chief Pudney to explain this. I need a second.
Second.
Chief, discussion,
So Mayor and the
please.
council, the town has a 3-year franchise with Republic that has 2 one-year renewals. We're in the last year of the renewals, so this is the 5th year. You had asked us in March, I believe, to go out and solicit other providers because we do have the opportunity to change at this point if you'd like to. We went out and selected, we put out on the street Appalachian Waste Republic, and Peak, using the same terms in the franchise, the bear-proof dumpsters, the pickup, the costing and everything. Peak turned in a no bid. In your document, you've got the breakdown of Appalachian and Republic. Republic was the low responsive bidder. Notwithstanding that, the franchise terminates at the end of this next term. We don't have the opportunity to renew. And you've heard from the community as well as I, this would be our opportunity to go back out and see if there's another option. The option of not having a franchise, I don't recommend. The town attorney can give you more detail on that, but we have 24 dumpsters to be serviced in the town. What we found over the last couple of years is we can't find a vendor who will service fewer. It's not a market where they'll have the capital investment in the equipment to come up here and service it without having all the dumpsters or substantially most of the dumpsters in the town. That was the reason Peak Sanitation declined to bid. There weren't enough dumpsters. Without a franchise, you do not have the ability to control bear-proof dumpsters, quantities, colors, service, those type of things, and the price. So staff recommends that you renew for the last year with Republic, and then if you'd like us, we'll have to renegotiate or go create a new franchise in 2026 anyways. That would be the opportunity to do that.
So for, Chief Bucky said that if you don't have a franchise, that you lose control. Can the town make stipulations on the guidelines that the folks who pick up trash have to adhere to?
Yes, sir. As part of our franchise ordinance, this has been a topic that the town has dealt with off and on for my entire tenure as the town's attorney, so probably better of 2 decades at this point. And over the years, we have added to that franchise contract that requires them to have bear-proof containers, also requires certain dates of service. One of the requirements of that is that they provide us a dedicated phone number where town staff can act as a liaison with Republic for problems that may arise. So that is one thing that we can build into and have built into a franchise agreement. Otherwise, you have, for lack of a better term, garbage wars, and you have folks who may be up here competing over dumpsters where you may have someone who wants to pick up at 6 a.m. and then you've got another company that's here at 5 p.m. and you'll have various garbage trucks at various places on the mountain. So in the past, that was found to not be workable, and that's why the town went with a franchise ordinance that it's had for some time and has had other companies other than Republic do that in the past, but Republic is the company that currently holds the franchise ordinance. A lot of the problem that you ran into in the past was companies are on private contracts. If they're only here to pick up one dumpster, that was quite expensive for the businesses that were in town, and that you can negotiate a lower rate by doing this as a group of 24 dumpsters rather than individual dumpsters. Plus, the service became very spotty at times, and town staff was left with enforcement issues related to uncollected dumpsters in various places of the town, just because you had multiple companies that were trying to pick up and just weren't making it up here.
So there was a comment made earlier in the public comments about an extended amount of time that their dumpsters were picked up. Do all the businesses and the condo associations have a local contact number?
So the contact number that Republic has given to us is one that's given to staff for staff to act as a liaison for that. Certainly there are problems with the current service provider as far as issues that come up and those kind of concerns, but that is something with a franchise that does allow us to act as a liaison at times to try and address those issues. So that may be something that could be useful under the franchise agreement. And of course, with a franchise agreement, you can write into that whatever terms and requirements you feel are necessary. We would need to do that at a time we could bid out the contracts, but you can include those terms of service for whomever gets the franchise agreement.
I mean, I can see that you know, if you had 50 people in a condo association, the local rep probably doesn't want 50 calls. But if you had one point of contact, whether it's the president of the POA or whomever it may be, if there are issues, you know, that may be something that we could discuss and look at putting in the contract.
Am I hearing you say that basically they should call the town if they have issues?
In the past,
That's what I'm saying.
in the past, that has been a solution that was done. I'm not sure if Republic has provided a contact for each of the businesses, but there is a dedicated contact requirement in your current agreement with Republic, that they have a dedicated contact where there's a live person who answers the phone rather than send you through the customer no service telephone tree. So that is a requirement in our agreement.
We do have a contact with Republic that we speak to on a regular basis during the wintertime. It's important to note that Republic has an individual contract with every user of their service. The town doesn't pay Republic and the community doesn't pay the town. So they have an individual contract which stipulates those terms.
Based on these rates?
Yes. The rates are negotiated based on the franchise. But they have a contract with each property that uses their service. And that contract specifies a local contact number. And so part of the problem, certainly Republic has failed to meet minimum standards during the wintertime. We receive all the complaints, all the calls. It's the town's fault. The problem is that we used to do this. The town used to do this, and we got out of the business because of the expense. That we needed almost $1 million of capital to get the equipment and do the pickup. The issue that we have in enforcing the franchise is that each customer has a contractual relationship, not the town. We have a franchise, which gives us an ability to enforce the franchise. But the individual customer, we don't have a relationship with. And so when we're dealing with Republic on an individual customer basis, we're less than successful. So we've learned a lot in the last 4 years with this franchise. I'm not sure that another company is going to do any better or any worse. What we need to do is strengthen our franchise so that we have some ability to enforce. I mean, obviously, to get a franchise here, there's a business relationship, and there should be a profit to whoever gets that franchise. We need the ability to have a little bit more teeth.
So that should be incorporated in next year's solicitations, I would assume.
That's what I'm recommending. We need to revisit this from A to Z and put in some more teeth. We have limited ability to enforce it for an individual customer. When a customer says they didn't come because the road's not plowed, we plow the road, and then they don't come back. Another problem is they service at 6 a.m. when the franchise says 7. We don't have the ability to clear the roads by 6 a.m., so we suggested that they pick up noon on, and we'll have the roads clear. That needs to be put in the franchise agreement. We don't have that now, and we really don't have the ability to make those changes. We do with the next franchise.
So when you change or when you put teeth into the franchise agreement, will that agreement mirror what the other businesses and associations here on the mountain have to follow? Will they follow that same model, or will they have to fine tune their contract since each contract is individual?
So their contract would need to meet the requirements of our franchise agreement. So we have the franchise agreement that says these are the minimum standards you have to provide. And in addition to that, they have to provide whatever they have contracted to their customer to perform. So in addition to having a franchise through the town that says they have the right to enter into these contracts, each individual property owner has a contract claim against Republic or whoever provides the service for failure to meet the terms of that contract, and the franchise is incorporated into that contract. So it's a breach of contract essentially for Republic or whomever not to meet their service obligations to their customer.
But each customer has an individual contract that could be different.
Yes, sir, it could be different. Some businesses require pickup more often than others, or, other circumstances that might come into play. But the franchise sets a minimum standard that they are expected to adhere to, and gives a little bit more negotiating power because you have 24 individuals that are essentially have the force other than one individual dumpster per location or business.
So let's say hypothetically that they go to a business on Beach Mountain and they claim that they cannot empty the dumpster because it's weather related or snowy conditions, and they go elsewhere. Could the town be notified that they weren't able to pick up? Now, I guess here's where you get the town involved. Or someone be notified so that there could be documentation that they couldn't empty the dumpsters, whether it's legitimate or, I don't want to use the word lazy, but I will. It was too cold and snowy and they didn't want to empty the garbage. So then, what verbiage could be put in the contract that there could be penalties and or, something that would lie on the favor of the business or condo association?
You can certainly draft into a solicitation for a franchise what those penalties would be and what those requirements are. That's somewhat of a double-edged sword, because if you have a clause that says if we receive so many reported complaints that we're going to issue them a fine or a civil penalty, when they go to bid on a price, that's going to inherently raise up the price because it raises the risk to that company if they fail to perform. So there's the balancing test between the lowest price and then also making sure we get responsive service.
So
But
my-
if we do the civil penalty, then we're getting the town back involved in,
Potentially, we would be involved in policing whether they fell below a minimum standard for their collection and compliance with their contract. But essentially, it's, as the franchisee, we can require them to meet certain standards, and if they agree that if certain metrics are not met, that they owe the town a civil penalty, that can act as an incentive to improve their service. But the other side of that is anyone bidding on that is going to want to charge more in the event that they do have these civil penalties that they end up incurring.
So Chief is, I'm sorry, did that answer your question? Appalachian Waste, or they want all the business, or they're gonna walk? Because
I didn't ask that. It was to the same terms of the current franchise, so it was all of the business.
Okay,
I didn't ask if they would walk.
all right.
I got several, while you're talking about the price sheet, I got several questions on that. I see $48.50 for Appalachian Waste, and then a notation down here, 6M/O/S lease.
Yes.
What-
If
what-
you'll notice up above, they have an off-season container lease of $50 that they add. And that was explained to be that if you had an off-season where there wasn't a lot of garbage, they wanted a fee for that. And it was, they assumed that was 6 months. So that was $50 for 6 months. That's why it says 6 months off-season lease, additional for the can.
Okay, so that would mean that if you were a business and you didn't generate any trash for 6 months, that you would only pay $50 a month?
No, an additional 50.
An additional 50. That's weird.
Yep.
So, I mean, that doesn't sound right.
That doesn't sound right at all. I would want some clarification.
Well, they bought the
on that.
truck and they gotta pay for it somehow.
So it's $50, so
Well, they're
this,
charging you more for not taking trash.
yeah, so they're charging $50 a month for those that aren't taking trash.
Well, they'll come up and empty it.
Yeah.
That's what you do. You
And then
just-
what's the fee for that?
It's the 350 for a 1 week service.
Okay, so it's $50, so either you have to opt out and do 6 months at a time, or you're gonna pay that $50.
I'm not gonna speak for their business model.
Okay.
This is how they responded to the request.
Okay,
So we issued the same terms in the franchise for all three, and this is what they responded with.
I think we need to, you have any more questions?
Oh, yeah. Because and Bob's been copied, and you have too, I think everybody may have on a few comments from commercial folks, and I've had several others that have talked to me about this. So franchise ordinance versus contract with Republic. We are, a franchise ordinance is separate from what we have gone into an agreement with Republic, correct?
So there are two different components to it. A franchise ordinance is a limitation as to who may enter into contracts. for
Much like an
certain
ambulance
services.
contract, much like an ambulance
Yes,
franchise
sir.
ordinance,
There
correct, that
is
a county would do.
exactly the same. So Watauga County has an ambulance franchise ordinance that says you must have the approval of the county before you can operate an ambulance service for various reasons. This is operated very similar to that. As far as the individual contracts, though, those are with the various property owners. If there is a franchise in place, that limits the ability of other folks to contract with third parties to empty these dumpsters, and sets a uniform standard for the emptying of those dumpsters.
Okay.
And there are certainly philosophical pros and cons versus franchises versus free market, and there are those kind of considerations to address. The reason why the franchise ordinance was adopted years ago is just due to the location and geography of Beech Mountain. It's a unique place.
Right, understood. Does the town receive any revenue from this franchise ordinance?
No.
I didn't think we did, but I just wanted to ask. And it sounds like right now, today, we're not spending a lot of money in staff time to maintain this ordinance, but that potentially we could if we were to have everybody call us instead of calling the Republic directly, correct?
It depends upon how you draft it and how you set it up. If you want monitoring metrics, then yes, it could involve a lot more staff time.
I spend a lot of time on this.
I know. Well, you spend a lot of time on everything.
No, I spend a lot of time on this.
This.
And so does Daniel Davis.
Okay.
And that is a problem. And no, we don't want to be the customer service rep for Republic or
Right.
Appalachian or anybody else.
Right, well, we shouldn't be, absolutely not. And they do haul all their trash off the mountain, they're not dumping here.
Correct.
Okay. So my question would be, what would be wrong with awarding multiple providers a franchise? The ability to do the business up here?
Certainly from a legal standpoint, you could. The question would be, would you get the same pricing model if you do that? And would it be something that you could do in that direction? You can certainly have a non-exclusive franchise if you choose to do so. It again comes down to what makes the most business sense and what's the most efficient way to approach this.
And I guess my final question would be, if we were to vote no on renewing, what's the repercussions?
Well, rather than voting on it today, I think we just need to table it for some more discussion.
You know, I know, but I'm asking this question. So if we were to not approve this, what are we looking at?
So if your franchise contract that you have with someone that currently exists expires, you somewhat have a limbo of, you can either change your franchise ordinance to say we're not going to require a franchise, or suspend that ordinance for a period of time to allow essentially the free market to address it and see how that goes. But you would not have any of the requirements such as your bear-proof containers as part of that, as part of any franchise agreement that would exist.
So do we have in any of our other ordinances related to trash, the requirements written that you must have bear-proof containers at a commercial business or a multifamily? Is that already written in the other part of the ordinances?
So I would need to double check your ordinance book, but I believe that it deals with single-family residences and whether it's regular pickup or disposal of trash, the ordinance does require dumpsters for condo associations and businesses. So that has typically been regulated through the franchise ordinance, but doesn't have to be.
So I just, where I'm going with this is if we were to regulate it through the ordinance, like we do for single-family homes, and put those requirements in there and not do anything with this, just basically let the franchise expire, we get out of the trash business in a way.
Oh, we either get out or we get in.
Or we're gonna
If
get
we got
in.
nobody else to pick up the trash, we're gonna be in it.
Right.
Right? And I totally understand, but I think economically, you know, as a franchise, to pick up 24 dumpsters, you can get a better rate from somebody than saying, well, you take 6, and you get 12. You know, it doesn't make economic sense, and I think that's what Bob was coming to.
Right.
But
No, I
it
get that
doesn't
side
work
of
out
it
if They
too.
don't do their job.
Yeah, that's the other thing, is how do we get them to do their job?
Like before said, and I'd like to, for us to review the contract and, Stanford's had some conversations, I have, and I'm
Oh, I've
sure
had.
we've all had conversations about some issues, and what we can do to tighten up the contract.
One staff problem you've had in the past before there was a franchise ordinance was figuring out who is the responsible party for the collection of the dumpsters, because you would occasionally get I contracted with Billy Bob's Dumpster Service to empty the dumpster. Well, how do we get in contact with them? I don't know. All I have is a phone number. Do you have an address? No. Do you know where they work out of? No. Do you know where they haul the trash? No. So, all of those things are, it's a complicated issue, and I'm not sure if there's a good solution. It's maybe finding the least worst solution.
Trash used to be an issue, it still is somewhat of an issue, but if you remember 5, 6, 7 years ago,
February 25th of 2021.
there
That's where it started.
there was a lot of trash on Beach Mountain, and you look at where we are today versus where we were, and it's a vast improvement.
But it's not perfect.
No, it's not perfect, and I go back to what Forrest said, reviewing the contract and.
Reviewing the franchise or reviewing the contract?
You would want to redo the franchise, because keep in mind, the contracts are with each of the individual
Right.
owners.
Correct.
So
I'm
you
sorry.
would want to decide
Right.
what terms are important for your contract and then bid that out. From a practical standpoint, and I'll defer to the manager on the timing of this, as far as this year, I'm not sure if there's time to do those rewrites and then rebid it in time to have an updated franchise agreement to send out for bids to replace your current one.
Is this
So-
at July 1st or June 30th?
June 30th.
Because you do have to hold a public hearing related to any franchise award.
Does the contract with the individual properties end at the same time?
That I do not know.
We
I
don't
would
have
assume
those.
if we changed franchise providers, it would have to. Because their contract with us that allows them to enter into contracts is for the term of their franchise. So I would hope they would not have contracted
Yeah.
for something they might not be able to provide.
Exactly.
So, if the old saying, for every action, there's a reaction. If we don't take action tonight and we delay it for another 30 days, will this negatively impact the folks that have Republic Services dumpster service now?
Well, that in 30 days would put you to the June 10th meeting. You've got 20 days after that. It just puts us in a worse position than we are today if you don't want to move forward. I'm not sure what 30 days is going to do.
Sounds, well,
Between a rock and a hard spot.
yeah. I'm not gonna say I understand how, some of the comments that we've heard of poor service.
Yeah, to give another contract with poor service, poor reviews,
I've heard mixed reviews. So between now and, well, let's say we hypothetically, if time's not on our side, sounds like, and I say this gingerly, probably shouldn't say it, that we need to go ahead and renew the contract for another year.
And work on
And
it.
if that's the lesser of the two evils, that's the route we take. And then you work on the franchise agreement and see what we can do to tighten it up.
Logistically, before the end of your budget year, you can select what is essentially one of these two services if you wish to change services under the existing franchise. To change the existing franchise will require some work, some notice, some public hearing, and then follow-up bids. So your options right now would be, you could select one or the other of these to provide franchise services for a one-year period. Or you could vote to say we're not going to require a franchise. Or the third option you would do is essentially, let's work on a new franchise agreement, and next budget season, we'll have all of that in place with what terms and conditions you want to impose on the franchisee.
I think that's probably the path of least resistance.
I mean, I'm just looking at these numbers. I mean, if we were to say, well, screw Republic, let's just go with Appalachian, well, it's a 50% increase. It's 50% over what Republic is, and whether the people who are getting this dumpster service are gonna swallow that. And, Republic is the devil you know, and we don't know what Appalachian's gonna be. So, unfortunately, I think we have to renew for a year
Well,
and work on it
Republic
between now and
bears
then.
no burden in not doing their job. That's the other
Yeah.
problem that we have sitting here, is that we have another year of them not doing their job. And there's no repercussions that we can do.
Yeah.
I mean, have we surveyed businesses and asked them if they wanted to go on their own with a dumpster service or stick with the franchise? Has that even been asked to
I've
the
spoken.
local businesses?
I've spoken to a few.
Years ago it was.
Yeah.
And, my memory is quite rusty, because it was at least more than a decade ago when that was done.
I've had 5 of 24 folks say they want to find their own service.
Yeah.
Well, I've had several, and I've challenged each one of them to find a provider and bring it back to me, and no one has responded. And what I've found in the marketplace with this bid is you're not going to have providers. So that's a dilemma that the town has. Regardless of what we like, if you can't pay someone to come pick up your dumpster because doesn't meet a business model, we're in a worse position than we are today.
By far.
Unfortunately, I think that this is the lesser of the two evils. I think something definitely needs to be done. Something needs to be done about it. There needs to be more action that either the town and or the businesses or associated, whoever their customers are on Beach Mountain, they need to have some recourse. But I don't know if we waited too long to address this. Well, I mean, I'm not going there, but anyhow.
But I'd like to see us, after this budget year commences, the new budget year commences, work on this then rather than
Correct.
wait until the end.
2 or 3
till this
months.
time next year.
2 or 3 months deep into it.
Yeah.
And not wait until a month before the contract expires.
I don't know if this is possible, but is it possible to put more teeth into the franchise contract before the June 10th meeting? Where we could start putting fines on these people for not,
Well, they bid based
Yeah,
upon
for-
the previous franchise, so.
yeah.
Right, the bid
So
is
it's
based
gotta
upon
stay
the
with the same
existing
one.
franchise,
Okay.
and as you've probably gathered, government does not turn on a dime, so it takes a while to put things in place. And I will say the provision of trash service is something where the participants are highly litigious, so we want to make sure that we do it correctly, because we do not want to end up having to pay them a displacement fee, because the statutory protections they have state that if you don't do this correctly, you have to pay them for the privilege of not picking up anyone's trash. And I certainly want to avoid that, because that would be difficult for me to explain to you if we ever had to do that.
Yeah. Totally.
Yes.
So, and what I just heard from that is we could, instead of extending it for a year, extend it for 6 months. Because now we're gonna owe them $40,000, because it's about $80,000 a year to do 24 bins on this mountain.
The bid was for your upcoming budgetary year, so that's what your bids are for.
you're gonna be getting into December. If you make a switch in 6 months, it's gonna be, maybe tough.
And plus, these numbers are bid based upon a 12-month contract.
Yeah, you're not getting that.
You guys wanna take a vote on this?
No.
Well, I don't either.
I think.
I
this-
feel for the folks that have had, but time's on our side. And I think we need to go ahead and accept one more year and ask for, like, 2 months into our budget, go ahead and start working on this and put Republic on notice. And then that'll also give us time that if someone else would be interested in quoting on the business, then that'll give us time to develop some rapport with them. And maybe the other condo associations or businesses can meet with these folks individually and, you
Or at
know.
least have a public hearing.
Yeah, and, yes, thank you, and have a public hearing.
I think we gotta go back at some point in time and sooner than later and look at the whole franchise ordinance and make some changes to it to include civil penalties to the provider when they don't do their job,
Correct. That's-
right? Because I think that's what's missing out of this. You know, I think about ambulance franchises because that's what my life was all about, right?
You're correct. However, what you're failing to take into consideration is each customer has a contract with Republic that has requirements for performance, and there are penalties. And instead of the town being the enforcer on the individual contracts, it needs to be the customer that has a contract with Republic. We certainly can put in penalties in the franchise, and our customers will pay for that. And if that's what your desire is, that's what we'll do. But the remedy is, if I'm a customer of Republic and I have a signed contract that says this is what the service will be for this amount of money, and you breach that, there's penalties in those contracts, and those you're overlooking that. It's not the town's responsibility to enforce those individual contracts. It's our responsibility to set a reasonable franchise and to control what we need to control for the town. You know, you set the hours of collection. Do you want someone picking up garbage at 3 o'clock in the morning? Because I'll get the phone call, and we won't have any control over that. You wanted colors of dumpsters. You wanted bear-proof dumpsters. There's a lot of things other than picking up garbage. And each customer has a contract that can be enforced. That shouldn't be the town's responsibility.
I agree, it shouldn't be.
And each thing we add into the franchise is just gonna cost more money to the customers, because they're gonna have to cover their butts.
So this is an important topic. This has been
Yeah.
going on for a while. We've got a lot left in our meeting, so what I like to do is take a vote on this, whether or not we accept one more year with this contract, and we ask to start digging into this thing in a couple months into our next budget and see what we can do to add some teeth. In the meantime, I'd like to get a couple contract, or get a contract from either a business up here or a customer, and maybe we review that. So all in favor in adding another year to this contract, all in favor, say aye.
Reluctantly, aye.
Reluctantly.
I'm not happy about it, but aye.
Alan?
Yeah, I'm not happy about it, but I think we have to.
All right, so this is the first time I've done this, so we're at 3-1, so I guess it passes. Yeah.
The clerk would need to record what your vote would be. I know that you currently have polled the council and say reluctant,
you know what?
3 reluctant yays and nay.
I'm like everyone else except for Stanford. Well, no, I'm like Stanford too, but I think that's the lesser of the two evils.
I don't think we have much choice.
I don't think we have much choice here.
Because if we do nothing, in 2 months, we're gonna have uncollected dumpsters.
That's correct.
Or will we?
Yeah.
The dumpsters are sitting there.
Who's
They
good
can come pick them up.
Well, we don't have the equipment to be able to move.
I know, I get that, but
Okay, so,
I'd hoped you'd have tabled it, but it's fine.
We're 4-1. And we will work on this.
I hope you see our dilemma.
No, I do, yeah, I perfectly do, but I just wanted to make you guys aware of what,
Well,
you
we
know,
thank
we're
you for
facing.
that. We thank you for bringing that.
And I think also that we, in the meantime, we need to be in touch with the public services and let them know that we've got customers that are unhappy for whatever reason, whether it's valid or not, they still need to know what the town's concerns are, what the
We
customers'
need to bring them
concerns
in
are.
for the public hearing.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
yeah, it wouldn't be bad. So anyhow, item 8.2, employee health insurance. I need a motion.
Motion.
Need a second?
Second.
All right, discussion. So if you turn to page 8.2, there's 4 different options. And I know we all have looked at this, but I'm gonna have the recommendation from our town manager is option 4. And Chief, you wanna explain this, please?
The Reader's Digest version.
Well, briefly,
Yes.
briefly, the health insurance was terminated March 1st by the League of Municipalities unannounced. And as we got thrown into the mix, we had to go out and find health insurance for our employees. We've contracted with the HILB group, HILB, and they went out and they were directed to take a look at our existing plan. I asked them to come up with similar, as close as possible. When you're doing with health insurance, it's very difficult. Come up with similar coverage for our employees at the best cost. And as I reported to you, we had been told that there was a 30% increase in premium, and we had put that in the budget. As you see, option 4, which I'm recommending as closely as possible, comes up with the benefits that we had before, and it's a 2.85% reduction over last year's premium. This is somewhat of a hybrid plan. It's Blue Cross Blue Shield of North Carolina is taking the high risk, the high dollar hospitalization, high deductible, and then the Alliance is a secondary insurance, aggregated insurance. The beauty of this is a fully insured plan. We were not in a fully insured plan before. We were in a pool. So this meets the requirements of what we set out, and it saves us 2.85%. My recommendation is the additional funds that we had budgeted will be returned to the fund balance, and we won't increase expenditures as the FEMA discussion. Was that short enough?
Yes, sir. So originally, it was gonna be like 30% increase. So now it's gonna be, we're gonna be
Basically
saving.
the same.
Yeah. You guys have any questions?
And the only question I have is, I'm reading these comparisons. Are they the same? Close to our existing?
Well, they're close. You'll notice that the deductible goes up for the employees. However, with the reinsurance, I call it the aggregated, it offsets that up to $3,300. As you know, employees pay 50% of their dependent care. The town pays 50%. That has gone up slightly for each of those tiers for the employees. So is it exact? No. Is it overall beneficial? It's as close to a wash as I could get when you're comparing insurance plans. We have Aetna currently, and if you look at the comparisons with Aetna, they obviously had a 30% increase. So did United Health at a 28% increase. Blue Cross Blue Shield, along with this aggregated secondary insurance, came in really well. I don't know how long you want me to go. There's a lot of detail here.
You hit the point that I had missed was the reinsurance.
Yep.
So that brings it back pretty close.
Any further questions? All right, take a vote on it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, item 8.2 passes. New business, need a motion to accept the first reading and, I'm sorry, I need a motion to open up a public hearing on the first reading of the town budget.
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Discussion?
first try.
Does anybody come up? It's a public hearing.
It's a public hearing, if anybody wants to speak. Come on up, Urs. Welcome back to Beach Mountain.
Ersteiger, 124 Raven Road. The problem with this public hearing is that I only got access, and the public only got access to the budget yesterday. And yesterday I was on the road all day, so the first time I actually had a chance to look at it was today. That being said, I think Bob and Steve have done a pretty good job overall. I mean, I think the budget, this one is hard to criticize, but I haven't really looked at a lot of that because I simply haven't had the time. I think the one concern that I have, and it relates to what's going on at Eagles Nest, and that is paving that road. I'm beginning to think that somehow parts of the town council are trying to drive access to Eagles Nest. And I still think there's a lot of residents who are opposed to that. There's $1 million paving in this budget. There's no specificity as to what it's going to be spent on. Bob made some comments late last year when the issue was raised that he would make sure that it was put in the $1 million, but the council wouldn't have to vote on it. That to me is kind of underhanded. I think if there is a sense of the council that they want that road paved, I think they need to go on the record and say, despite the opposition from the citizens, you want to pave that road. The rest of the budget actually is pretty decent. It calls for no tax increase as far as I can tell. The pay raises, given what's happened in the economy, are reasonable. Bob and Steve have done a really good job of holding the line as far as possible. But the paving part still really bothers me. And I think the council needs to be a little bit more transparent. And they also need to give people a little bit more time to review a budget that is 160.
Thank you. Any other comments? Thank you, Urs. I need a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion?
Second. Mayor, we've got a presentation on the model for you, the finance.
Yes, sir.
model. It'll take us just a minute to set up.
Oh, here goes that double screen again.
Chazo, do you want to load? Yeah.
That looks like, yeah.
I'm buying a rolling car. Leave some casters. Thank you, sir. Like, I can come up with something.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll go work with Riley to engineer that this week.
Hey, sir.
Thank you.
In my spare resort time.
These guys first time in advising, so they're plugging different numbers together. And look, we'll be here for the next 4 hours. So, and that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Which file do you want? PowerPoint. This one here? Yep. That's open.
Last year, didn't you see it?
Yeah, I remember this. Change numbers.
Tax rate, do a decrease, what it's gonna do to the rest of the budget, increase what it's gonna do.
I'm plugged in, Riley. You are.
Riley, if it was a fire truck, you know what to do.
Doesn't have to be water.
Yeah, thank God.
You can leave anytime you want. Aaron, you can leave anytime you want. We're gonna be here a while. That will be,
Mayor and council, while we're waiting for this to boot up, let me just explain what we're doing here. We do this annually where we present the model, the financial model that's predominantly Steve uses, I do on occasion. And this is from First Tryon Advisors. They're the ones that put this together. David Cheatwood usually is here. Chazo is here today. He actually makes this thing work. So what we've done today is given you you've got the hard copy handout.
we can, folks,
So, I'm sorry.
Excuse me, can we have the chatter?
thank you.
So you've got a hard copy handout, and we want to show you the highlights of the model. And Chazo's going to show that to you and answer your questions. We also have the model live here if you want to get into it and manipulate the numbers. For a refresh, this is the model that you can plug in ad valorem rates, you can plug in capital, you can plug in revenues, and adjust it. It not only allows you to see where you are today, it also shows you where you've come from, because we've loaded actual data into the model. Each year it gets more accurate. But more importantly, it allows you to look into the future in what every decision that we make budget-wise has not only an impact in the budget we're in, but it has a tremendous impact in our future. So with that, I'll have you take over. You can't see, can you?
Oh, okay. I was checking the.
Yeah, no, I
I've got it on. I've got it here. So
Okay.
okay. I was just waiting to see if it was gonna show up there. So
It doesn't go on there.
I see. Well, good afternoon, and thank you all for letting me come out and speak with you. Chazo Halverson with First Tryon Advisors. Just as a quick refresher, we are a financial advisory firm based out of Charlotte. We work with a number of local governments throughout the state, helping them with capital planning and debt financing. So here today to talk to you all about capital planning, where you all have been over the past few fiscal years, where you are currently in your current budget year, and then to Bob's point, how do this year's budget decisions and your ongoing capital needs kind of shape the future for the town's finances. So I'm going to take each of your three main funds kind of section by section here, do a brief overview of the outstanding debt that is serviced by each of those funds, look at the historical trends on both the revenue and expenditure side of the equation, and then wrap up with the final section on the forward-looking capital planning picture. So starting with your general fund, so as of the beginning of this month, you had about $7 million of debt outstanding that's serviced by this fund, made up of 3 installment purchase agreements and then 1 state loan related to Hurricane Helene. I'll note that the first 3 loans there that total just over $3 million, those are all serviced by ongoing revenues of the general fund. The state loan is intended to be repaid by federal-related reimbursements related to the hurricane, but it does have a repayment schedule that kicks in 2027. So to the extent that those federal dollars don't materialize, you'll see in the orange bars in the graph here, those are the dollars that potentially the general fund could be on the hook for until those reimbursements do come into play. Moving on to the next slide here, looking at your general fund revenue history here. The bulk of your revenues within general fund are made up of your property taxes, about 57%. Local option sales tax are a close second at 22%, and then the remaining 21% across the rest of the fund is primarily made up of utility franchise taxes, hold harmless funds, PAL bills, TDA reimbursements, and some other miscellaneous revenues. So if we focus on the 2 main revenue drivers here, your ad valorem taxes, those jumped up sizably in 2023, which was in conjunction with the revaluation that became effective. As of 2024, you brought in about $6.7 million of property tax-related revenues, and you budgeted a slight increase in 2025 to just about $6.9 million. So over The 4 actual fiscal years from 2020 to 2024, the average growth was about 11.7%, but again, a large chunk of that was due to the property tax revaluation that took place in 2023. Local option sales tax have also seen a nice increase over the past 4 or 5 fiscal years, jumping up to $2.6 million in fiscal 2024. And that is a direct follow-through effect of the reval and the way that the county does it here. They allocate sales tax revenues based on ad valorem tax levies. And so with the town stepping up its property tax revenue in 2023, you actually are able to grab a bigger share of the pie of sales tax revenues within the county. So there was no real material increase in overall sales across the county in 2024. It's just that your allocation of that pie got larger with your revaluation and where you all set your property tax rate. So that was about $2.6 million in fiscal 2024, budgeted conservatively in 2025 at just over $2.4 million. Moving on to the next slide here. So this is the entirety of the general fund over the past 4 or 5 fiscal years. Looking at a nice trend here. From fiscal 2020 to 2024, you increased your revenues by about $4.7 million. The lion's share is attributed to the ad valorem taxes and the sales tax revenues. So about $11.8 million in fiscal 24. Conservative budget in 2025 at $10.4 million, primarily due to some conservatism on the sales tax side and conservatism in investment earnings. But across the last 4 fiscal years, grown about 13% year over year for the 2020 to 2024 picture. So very strong revenue growth, which sets you all up well, which we'll see here in a few slides on your fund balance levels. We move on to the expenditure side of the equation. This one's a little bit more evenly distributed across a couple departments. So road maintenance is the lion's share at 36%, or about a third of the budget. Administration, 21%, police, 13%. And then there's about 30% left over that is mainly culture and recreation, fire, capital outlay, and debt service. So looking at the road maintenance, that peaked at $4.3 million in fiscal 2024, was budgeted a little bit less in 2025 at $3.3 million, but it's grown from about $2 million to $4.3 million, so a little more than doubled over the past 5 fiscal years, or an average growth rate of just under 21%. For administration, this one's a little more steady growth year over year, $2.6 million at the end of fiscal 24. A slight reduction in your budget in 25, but an average growth rate of about 8.5% or so over the last 5 years. And then lastly, police, very steady growth year over year, $1.5 million in 2024, budget of $1.6 million in 25, or about 8% growth year over year. Looking at the entire general fund expenditure picture here, a similar picture to the revenue side of the equation. Started at about $7.2 million in 2020. That grew to just under $12 million in 2024. A slight reduction in your budget in 2025 to about $11.5 million. Overall, about an average growth rate of 13% over the last 5 or so fiscal years. And so what does this mean in terms of fund balance that you all have available at the end of the day? So pretty steady fund balance over the past 5 or so fiscal years. At the end of fiscal 24, the general fund balance totaled $8 million, and that has various designations to it. Non-spendable being the most restrictive, unassigned being the least restrictive, so the most fungible dollars that you all can use to cover capital needs or address kind of one-time costs that might pop up unexpectedly. And so your most fungible dollars as unassigned fund balance was about $6.5 million at the end of fiscal 24. We like to benchmark that as a percentage of your budget. So your operating expenditure budget, that's about 71%, which gives you all some flexibility to deploy those dollars if you need to. Based on the 2025 budget, we're estimating that your unassigned fund balance will remain relatively flat at about $6.6 million. So this sets you all up well when you look at your capital list for fiscal 2026 and beyond to be able to tackle those capital needs within the current confines of your revenue streams. Any questions on the general fund before I move on to the water and sewer fund? All right. So we're going to do a similar walkthrough here, starting with the outstanding debt on the water and sewer fund. As of the beginning of this month, that was just over $18 million. That is spread across various installment financing, state revolving fund loans, USDA-related loans, and then like the general fund, there is one Hurricane Helene-related state loan. This one does not have a set repayment schedule. It is just all due in fiscal 30, so that's where you'll see that large orange spike of $3 million Again, this one is anticipated to be repaid from reimbursement-related dollars, but to the extent that those are delayed or don't materialize to the full amount, the Water and Sewer Fund could be on the hook for that $3 million come in fiscal 2030. On the revenue side of the equation, the Water and Sewer Fund, it's almost exclusively made up of the charges for services for water and sewer related customers. That's about 87% of the revenue. And there's about 13% or so that's comprised of availability fees, tap fees, interest earnings, and other miscellaneous dollars. So looking at charges for services, that was about $3.6 million in fiscal 24, a slight conservative budget in fiscal 2025. Likely due, y'all had the shift in your rate structure, so just trying to be conservative to see how that kind of takes effect and to make sure that there's no budget shortfall for that year. But across the last 5 fiscal years, about 8.9% growth, which is reflective of rate increases in general customer growth, whether that's new customers adding on to the system or additional usage as well. So the whole revenue picture here, about $4.5 million in 2020. That's increased to just under $4.1 million in 2024. Conservative budgeting at $3.6 million for 2025, but about 12.6% growth over the last 5 fiscal years. On the expenditure side, water treatment makes up just under 40% of your expenditures. Water and sewer admin's at 14%, and then waste collection and treatment's another 13%. The balance of the expenditures within the fund are mainly debt service, tap and system maintenance, and then capital outlay. So looking at water treatment, that has grown from just over $800,000 in 2020 to a little over $1.2 million by 2024, budgeted at $1.1 million for 25, so about 10% growth year over year over the past 5 years. Water and sewer admin, that's bounced around a little bit. It's actually down from a high in 2020 of $550,000 to about $440,000 in 24, and budgeted at $372,000 in 25. Waste collection, more modest increases year over year. That was $270,000 in 2020. It's jumped up now to $400,000 in 24. Slight budget decrease to $380,000 in 25, or about 10% growth year over year. And looking at the entirety of the water and sewer expenditures, we're about $2.4 million back in 2020. That's now up to $3.1 in 2024. A sizable increase in 25 to about $5.4 million. The lion's share of that is related to capital outlay that was budgeted. So on the operational side, the debt service side, relatively steady growth year over year, but increased budget for capital there is what's driving that budgetary increase. And so for the water and sewer fund, similar to fund balance on the general fund side, we look at what's called unrestricted cash, or those dollars that you have effectively in your fund balance in the water and sewer fund that you can deploy for capital needs should you wish to do so. That was just under $900,000 at the end of 2024. You'll see that that was a sizable decrease from 2023. Almost all of that was due to capital outlay, so you all built up funds to then deploy on capital projects, which is a very prudent use of those dollars. We equate the unrestricted cash to what's called days cash on hand. It's very similar to an unassigned fund balance ratio, but effectively saying if all of your water and sewer revenues were to dry up completely, how long could you operate the system before you went bankrupt effectively? And so about 140 days, so that's, call it, 33% or so of a annual budget you could last before you all ran out of dollars. On a budgetary basis, there was a slight appropriation of dollars in the 2025 budget, so estimating that your unrestricted cash position would drop to about $800,000 by the end of 2025. And then lastly, the sanitation fund here. Only 2 outstanding loans that are repaid by the sanitation fund, relatively minor in amount, about $590,000 outstanding, a little over $100,000 of debt service for the next 3 fiscal years, and then a nice step down as one loan rolls off, and then it drops down to about $40,000 a year thereafter. There's no Hurricane Helene related loans on this fund here. For revenue, 98% of your revenue comes from charges for services. The other 2% is just recycling revenue, investment earnings, and miscellaneous revenues. So your charges for services have grown to about $790,000 in 2024. Budget increased to $920,000 for 2025, about 13% growth year over year, and that's inclusive of rate increases that have been implemented in various budget years. The sanitation fund revenue as a whole, about $525,000 back in 2020, a little over $800,000 in 2024, and then budgeted to increase to about $940,000 in 2025, almost 11% growth year over year. For expenditures, just since this is a standalone fund without any departments, looking at this on kind of a line item by line item basis, about 70% of your expenditures are salaries and employee benefits. And then there's kind of a miscellaneous gathering of other operating expenditures that account for about 14%. And then the rest is capital outlay and debt service. And so salaries and benefits have grown from about $314,000 in 2020 to almost $600,000 in 2024. A slight budget decrease to $580,000 in 2025, but almost 18% year-over-year growth. And then other operating expenditures, those kind of ebb and flow depending on what comprises those dollars in a given budget year. But those have actually declined from our 2020 reference point to about $115,000 in 24 and budgeted to remain flat in 2025. So overall expenditure picture here, starting at about $450,000 back in 2024, it's grown to $850,000, back in 2020, grown to $850,000 by fiscal 2024, as mainly those salaries and benefits have grown year over year. And then like the water and sewer fund, looking at the cash position within the sanitation fund, that was about $435,000 at the end of fiscal 24. A slight budget projected surplus in 2025 that would increase that to about $578,000. The $434,000 equates to about 216 days cash on hand, so slightly over half a year's worth of days cash on hand within that fund. And so that's kind of the summary of where you all have been within each of the last three funds, or excuse me, within each of your three major funds over the last 5 or 6 fiscal years. Wanted to kind of use that to set the stage for now. What are we looking at on a forward-looking basis for each of these funds when we start to address operational needs, capital needs, and our ability to fund both of those expenditure requirements within the confines of our existing revenue streams? Or are there certain pressures where our fund balance or cash position is getting too low, and thus if we need to fund the capital project as we have them laid out, if we have to fund the operating expenditures that we need to continue to maintain our various services, can we quantify what those potential increases might mean in terms of increases on your tax rate or increases on your utility rates to be able to meet certain targets? So as a brief reminder of the capital planning model that we've built for the town and maintained throughout the years, it's an Excel-based tool. It's very user-friendly. It allows us to digest a lot of information, create certain assumptions, and then turn them into outputs to effectively determine, is the plan of finance that we're putting together feasible for the town to consider? If not, do we need to cut back on certain capital projects, adjust growth assumptions, delay capital projects or move them out, or kind of resize our capital list to make sure that it fits within whatever parameters we want to set. So on the left-hand side of the page, that little funnel, what goes into the model itself? It's the existing debt that you all have on the books, so what we just looked at on those various funds, the financial performance that you all have experienced over the past couple fiscal years, and then your capital improvement plan. What do you all have facing yourselves over the next 5 or so fiscal years in terms of large capital needs, and how do we go about funding those on a pay-as-you-go basis? Do we need to finance any of those projects? Are there outside funding sources, maybe grants out there that we can tap into to alleviate any burden for the town? And then the outputs that we get are, what are the impacts to our property tax rates, our utility rates? Can we meet all of our financial needs within our current confines of our rate structures? Do we need to consider increases? We're looking at those fund and cash balances just to determine, are we maintaining healthy levels of fund balance or cash positions in our various funds to insulate us for any future needs that might pop up that aren't presently addressed. If there are any financial policies or targets, we're making sure that we're meeting those. Then we have peer comparisons built out to make sure that the financial position that you all are maintaining is comparable to other like entities throughout the state, so that you're not getting too high or too low. You're kind of in that sweet spot where you're meeting the expectations of your town, but also the expectations of the local government commission sets on you all for local governments of your size. So within the model, we have your general fund built out, your water and sewer fund, your sanitation fund, and then the utility capital reserve fund. And then as I mentioned earlier, we're looking at historical and projected data to kind of create those forward-looking pictures of what we think each fund might look like out over the next 5 fiscal years when we start to layer on capital needs. So wanted to give you all an overview of the kind of standing assumptions that we have in the model. This is just a set scenario that we put on paper here, but as Bob alluded to, we have the model available. If you don't agree with any of these assumptions, we could certainly pull it up, make a change on the fly, and see what that impact might do to the overall results. But wanted to lay out kind of the key drivers of the model and what assumptions we have within here. So starting with the general fund, the main revenue driver is the value of a penny. So what does 1 cent on the tax rate generate for you all in terms of dollars that translate to property tax revenues? And so we've assumed that that's going to grow at 2% annually year over year. So that's kind of natural growth. So either new developments coming into the area, so new homes or new businesses opening up. It is ignoring revals. So if there is a reval year, we're effectively assuming that you all go revenue neutral. So in essence, your property tax revenues are going to go up 2% year over year just because of natural growth within the town. If we assume recreation department fees will grow at 3.5% annually. Sorry, I should mention all of this is growth off of your fiscal 2026 budget. So that is our base year for our projections, and anything that we're growing for fiscal 27 and beyond is what these growth rate assumptions are going to apply to. Local option sales tax growing at 2% annually. We're keeping Powell bill flat. We're assuming that your investment earnings rate is 3% for fiscal 27 and 2.5% thereafter to align to the projected Fed funds rate. And then all other revenues, just a modest 1% annually. On the expenditure side, we're assuming that salaries and benefits will grow at 3% annually. All other expenditures will grow at 1%. Capital outlay is driven by what has been identified on your CIP. And then debt service is based on what's existing debt on the books, and if there's any capital needs out there that might require a loan, we're going to amortize those capital projects out based on a certain set of assumptions. For the water and sewer fund, for revenues, we're assuming that your customer growth is going to grow at 2% annually for residential customers for fiscal 26, 1% growth thereafter. We're not assuming any growth on all other customer types. And then like we've looked at in the past, water and sewer rates, 9% growth or 9% rate increase, I should say, in fiscal 27, 7% in 28, 6% in 29, and then 2% thereafter. And I'll mention that's on both base rates and volumetric rates. Availability fees, we're assuming no growth there. And then depending on the other revenues, anywhere from 0 to 3% annually. Expenditures very similar to the general fund side. Salaries and benefits at 3%, all other expenditures at 1%. Capital dictated by the CIP, and then debt service based on what's on your books or what might be driven by our capital list. And then lastly, sanitation fund, we're assuming that on the revenue side, charges for services will grow by 2% annually, all other revenues 1%, and then the expenditures, the exact same assumptions that we have for general fund and water and sewer fund. So slide 29 here is a summary, high level of the capital list for each of the three funds. There is an appendix in this workbook that has the detail of each of those projects that make up this summary level table. But if I look at the general fund, that's a little over $4 million in capital needs, whether that's pay-as-you-go, debt, or grant funded. The lion's share of the capital list is with regards to water and sewer, just over $35 million, of which a large chunk, about $16.5 million, is grant or third-party funded. Then more modest capital needs on the sanitation fund, about $700,000. Then lastly, a portion of your water and sewer capital-related projects are anticipated to be funded out of your utility capital reserve, and that's about $2.5 million. You'll see on this table here that there is a base assumption here that some projects will be funded on a pay-as-you-go basis, so that's tapping into either fund balance or unrestricted cash reserves or current year dollars that are generated within your budget. There are some projects that are either too large in scope to fund on a pay-as-you-go basis, or they're the types of projects that you would rather finance because they're a good tangible asset that could be financed versus timing of those funding, those projects being funded, which fund will repay the loan there, excuse me, the structure of the loan, so how do we plan to amortize the principal payments, what term will we amortize the loan over, and a base assumption for our interest rates. So if you look at the general fund, those are those first 5 lines there. You'll see that all of the capital projects that currently are considered for debt financing are your vehicles and equipment type projects. So you have a fire truck, a dump truck, and then a few kind of rolling stock type equipment projects that are on the list there. And then on the utility side, mainly some sewer system rehab and water system rehab projects that total up to just over $16 million. and those are going to assume to be funded through state revolving fund loans, which are those lowest cost loans that you all can access. So it's, it looks like a lot of debt, but when you spread it out, amortizing it over 5, 10, 15, or 20 years, it allows you to take on these large capital projects, but minimize the financial impact of each of these funds. So moving on to the outputs of the model, and basically our takeaways are determining, can we fund these capital projects, can we fund our operating expenditures within each of these funds, within our current revenue streams, or the set of assumptions that we laid out before. Slide 31 here is the general fund. So our standing assumption is that you all keep your property tax rate the same. We're growing our property tax revenue by 2% annually because of that natural growth. And if we layer on all of our capital projects, we forecast out our operating expenditure needs, you'll see that the far two right columns is where we're tracking your unassigned fund balance. It does dip from our current levels of roughly 70% to about 41% in our low point, but that is not until out in fiscal 2030, which is a far out forecast year where a lot can change between now and then. And that 41% level, while it's showing up in red because it's dropping below our target of 50%, that's still a very healthy fund balance level for a local government of your size. So what this is telling us here is the capital list that is facing the general fund, the operating expenditures that the general fund is facing, can all be tackled without a property tax rate adjustment. So I think that's a good takeaway. Now, should something materially change where a capital project pops up that wasn't on the list, or one becomes much more expensive than anticipated, or if there's a severe recession and sales tax were to trail off, then this picture could change. It could also change to the better if there's positive variance. But what we're looking at now in terms of all the assumptions, all the capital lists, the 2026 budget projections and beyond, the general fund is in a good position to tackle all of these capital projects at the current property tax rate. If I move on to slide 32 here, this looks at the water and sewer fund on the left-hand side, the sanitation fund on the right-hand side. Similar takeaways for both of these funds. We're a little bit light on cash in the water and sewer fund over the next couple of fiscal years, but as those projected rate increases will take effect, that'll replenish our cash position to a level that we're targeting 180 days, or about 50% of the fiscal year's budget in your cash balance. And so come 2028, we're going above our target there. So there are large capital needs on the horizon for the water and sewer fund, both on a pay-as-you-go basis, grant-funded basis, or some debt funding. But I think if those water and sewer increases were to be put in place, that would allow this fund to stay healthy and tackle all the capital needs. And then lastly, the sanitation fund, the most modest of the CIPs, with modest 2% growth in sanitation-related revenues year over year. You can tackle all those capital needs, fund all of your operating expenditures, and not have any financial pressures there. The next two slides here are similar summaries, just in graphic format of what I just went through. So slide 33 here just looks at the debt service burden on each of the general fund and the water and sewer fund. If we were to look at existing debt, which is what we touched on in the first couple sections of this book here, that's what's in blue, and then the orange bars here are what would be stacking on top as we consider financing some of those capital projects. So you'll see on the general fund side, this is a little bit skewed, as is the water and sewer fund with those state loans. But the additional debt that you all would take on, which is again those orange bars, is probably to the tune of about $250,000 to $300,000 a year of additional debt service within the fund. You're currently paying just under $500,000 of debt service. So the state Hurricane Helene related loan aside, your debt service burden would go from about $500,000 to $800,000 at the peak, but step down thereafter as debt starts to pay down and roll off your books. Looking at the water and sewer graph here, again, a little bit skewed in 2030 with the state loan. Currently paying about $750,000 in existing debt. You do have a few state loans on your books now, but won't start paying until 2027, which is why you see that step up in blue to just over $1 million. But then you'll see that we're stacking on maybe another $1 million or so of water and sewer related debt as the number of those SRF loans start to take effect. But with those rate increases, you'd be able to service that debt without any issues. And then the last slide here that I have prepared for you is just graphic format of those tables that we looked at before. So the top two graphs are related to the general fund. The top left graph is effectively saying, are we adding to or subtracting from fund balance in a given fiscal year? You'll see a large drop in 2027. That's because we have forecasted about a $1.7 million, or a total of $1.7 million of pay-as-you-go related capital out of that fund, but you'll have a healthy enough fund balance position where you can take that capital project and pay for it out of cash as opposed to financing it. But after that, you'll see that it's relatively level, a few break-even years, a few years where you're slightly tapping into fund balance for capital projects, but it pretty much levels off starting in fiscal 2031 at manageable levels within the general fund. And in the water and sewer side, you'll see that there are some projected increases to water and sewer related unrestricted cash positions. That is a function of adding on debt to the system, but having to ensure that you have sufficient revenues to cover that debt. Typically with utility related debt, you're not sizing your water and sewer related revenues to cover debt service, principal and interest 1-for-1. You usually want to have a little bit of a margin above that 1-to-1 ratio. So we've been targeting anywhere from 1.2 to 1.4 times. And so if you're covering your existing payments by 1.2 to 1.4 times, and you're covering all of your existing expenditures 1 times, then that's going to kick off a little bit extra cash to the bottom line in your water and sewer fund, which can then be deployed for future capital needs down the line, like you all did in fiscal 2024. So it is projecting a slight increase in your water and sewer cash position year over year, but as capital projects arise, or if there's ever a project that's might be looking for grant funding and that doesn't materialize, but we can flip it to a pay-as-you-go related project out of our unrestricted cash position and have enough funds available to do so. So I know I did a lot of talking. I'm happy to take any questions, comments, feedback. Again, the model is available here. If you don't like any assumptions, I'm happy to adjust those on the fly and see what the impact might be. But again, thank you all for the time and let me speak.
Mr. Mayor?
It's a lot of information. I think it's a great presentation. This is a great tool. I want the opportunity to review this some more. It's very vanilla. I hope that on some of your growth projections, where one of the slides was like a negative 8%, one was a negative 11%. You've probably been talking to our town manager because he's too conservative sometimes. So I hope that number's going to be positive.
In Bob's defense, we see that across the state where budget years are always super conservative on revenues and expenditures, and there's always, not always, but the likelihood that you outperform budget to the good on both sides of the equation is what creates that budget variance and then drops funds to the bottom line. So certainly not a knock on Bob. We see it everywhere, but that does manifest itself when you're looking at actuals versus budget.
So is that how you guys historically do this?
We'll traditionally base our projections off of budget. If there are certain budget decisions that are made to keep revenues conservative or expenditures conservative, we'll occasionally say, all right, can we maybe bring some of these revenues to a more realistic position or more realistic picture. So sales tax, for example, if you're conservative on sales tax budget and then you look at your 2024 sales tax and you're budgeting $500,000 less than you were, then we'll maybe make a correction there to say, all right, let's try to bring that back in 2027, for example, to a more realistic level to kind of right-size that forward-looking growth projection. And then on the expenditure side, for example, if you're budgeting for full salaries and you're not going to have 100% employment throughout the whole fiscal year, maybe we'll haircut some of those salary projections going forward. I have not done that here just to try to stay conservative on both sides of the equation, but if we wanted to get more detailed and fine-tuned on the projections, we've certainly done that before.
You guys have any questions?
Well, I think what jumps off the page to me is that we are pretty sound, especially with our fund balance. And when you look at, even in our decreasing years, we still have a 50% fund balance to budget. I think that shows us we're in pretty solid financial shape. However, as Bob's famous saying, we don't know what we don't know. And with this lean situation and our expenditures there, we don't know. So I think being in a good cash position is only security for the town.
Stanford, Vice Mayor.
I'm good with it.
Okay, Thank you for your time.
Thank you all as well. I
Thanks,
appreciate
sir.
it.
Safe travels. Very, very good presentation. So you need a second to take this down, Chief?
Yeah. I don't know what's.
All right, so the next item is, item 9.2 is, I need a motion to appoint a member to the Board of Adjustments.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to appoint Marty Marks to the vacant Board of Adjustment member position. Also, Robert McMichael to move him into the first alternate, and Freddie Harris to move into the second alternate.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, item 9.2 passes. Okay, item 9.3, this is a public hearing on a proposed town property rezoning. I need a motion to open the public hearing.
Motion.
Second. Would anyone like to speak on this public hearing? Going once, going twice? Okay, this public hearing is closed.
I figured that should be doing
Item 9.4. This is a call for a public hearing and second reading on the annual budget. This is a public hearing. Need a motion to open it?
Motion.
Second. Anyone have?
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? You're right. I'm sorry.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you. You're on the ball today. You're doing good. Okay, so what? So do we take a vote on this?
Yes, sir. Oh,
Yes.
yes, you have to
Yeah,
call for the.
all right. So,
What is the date is that of the hearing?
June 10th?
During the
That'll be the next,
council meeting?
okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you for attending today. Okay, so, Chief, you're up.
All right, if we could just quickly, we've done a lot of finance today, but if you turn to page 100 in your agenda, look at the next couple pages. We do this every month. Our benchmark is 75% in the general fund of expenditure, or the year. We're at 70% of expenditures, so we're to the good there. I don't know that that'll continue. We're spending quite a bit of money right now on some late capital and some Helene expenditures, but for right now through March 31st, we look really well. As the utility fund is similarly, we're at 60% of the 75, and sanitation's at 46%. So all the matrix there on the through March 31st look really well.
That's a good job, Chief. If you guys notice that, you know, the benchmark's 75%, and then our expenditures are 70%. The town manager, finance manager, and staff are doing a nice job budgeting their expenses.
Steve cracks the whip.
Monday morning. Steve left.
Monday morning staff meetings.
You've got a strong council too that watches it.
That's true, Mayor. All right, my report, I'll go through this as quickly as possible. A lot of things to report. The Buckeye Lake dredging, the contractor's mobilized. He's coming up to speed, planning to operate 12 hours per day, 6 days per week. They will be done by June 1st as contracted. It's a unique project. We've got a lot of concerns, a lot of people watching things down there. So we'll get that taken care of here quickly.
And he hasn't started dredging yet, right? He's just still doing.
Still mobilizing. The Cherry Gap site, the permitting's complete. We're waiting for the erosion control permit to be transmitted from the state. We'll begin building the road, the temporary road into that. It's next in line, and we will start hauling dewatered materials at the end of June, 1st of July to that site. Roads and culverts, FEMA process is still going slowly. However, all the damages have been inspected, and we're waiting for approval from the CRC. That's the higher level federal bureaucracy that reviews everything.
And nothing can start until we get that approval.
Yes. Then they'll obligate funds, and when they obligate the funds is when we'll pull the trigger. We are going out to bid for multiple contractors to do roads and culvert. so that it'll coincide, we hope, with the FEMA process. And I will tell you that they've updated our road and culvert damages, and now we're over $30 million. We were at 27 million damages, we're over 30.
Whoopee.
Yep. Debris, the trucks continue to travel throughout the town selectively picking up debris as they see fit. Public Works and our inspections department are working to inspect behind them to check off each town road, and we're near the end of the process. We really need to get them out of here. You did approve in the consent agenda a not to exceed increase. We hope to get that closed out so that we can do our final accounting to FEMA for reimbursement. You asked me to contact the TDA to fund specific budget items, specifically salt, the plow, a storage building for a total of $155,000. I met with the TDA director, and she'll put it on the June agenda, and I'll present it, and we'll have an answer for you after their meeting.
While you're on that subject, I understand that the new swing at the Overlook is a great idea, it's super, but it's come out of the rec budget. Why is that? Why is it in the TDA item?
We didn't ask them, and we do things like that out of the rec budget. Do you like it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Picture up.
Did you swing on it?
So the Haggerty Group have been hired to assist us with the FEMA Hazard Mitigation Grant for Lake Coffee. Lake Coffee is coming to fruition. We should be out to final design and bid in the fall. And we were struggling to meet the FEMA requirements. That has a February of 2026 deadline to have phase one, which is about $1.9 million done. So I added to their scope for the Hurricane Helene to assist us with that. I just want to let you know they're on board. The Commercial District Economic Planning Project is well underway. The Hill Group spent most of last week here in town hosting the community charrette to gather information and ideas. A second charrette will be held beginning July 7th through the 10th, where they reportedly will bring back some design ideas and give some input from the community. So for all of the elected officials in the community that participated, thank you. We'll see what comes out of this, but so far they're on schedule. Our K-9, PD K-9 Deegan got certified, nationally certified. It's about 200 hours worth of training. He specializes in narcotics, article search and rescue, and he's certified as a scent dog. And then yesterday he got diagnosed with Lyme disease. So got tick bite. So Deegan is doing well. George Gary Miller has been sworn in as our interim police chief. The mayor did that on May 1st, and we'll begin the process to advertise the position. And within the next 6 months, we'll have a decision on that. The dedication and plaque unveiling for the Visitor Center is scheduled for May 23rd at 2 p.m. Please plan to attend. We'll have a ribbon cutting. Mayor, if you and the council could be there, cut the ribbon.
May 23rd,
May
2 p.m.
23rd, 2 p.m. Is it June?
June.
Okay. Are you sure? I'll confirm it. June 23rd at 2 p.m.
Will you confirm that?
And that gives us some time, and then we'll dedicate it to Elena. That was the plan. Parks and Recreation events. Sean wanted me to tell you that next week or 2 weeks he starts free guided hikes. Contact the rec center. He has a Beach Mountain Naturalist rally. I questioned him what that was. It's on May 31st, and it's where they're going out into nature and looking at plants and animals and things like that. There's a community cleanup at Buckeye Rec Center May 31st. The farmers market is June 6th, and the fishing derby at Lake Coffee is June 7th, 9 to 12. So anybody that's interested in more information, contact the rec center. Mayor and council, that's my report.
Wow. Well, Alan?
Yeah, as usual, I'd like to just acknowledge the town employees and our town manager for the job of really getting us back on our feet after Helene, and we still have a long way to go, so continue to be patient and allow the town to rebound from all of the damage. And we are making progress, and Chief is always in the middle of FEMA and all the rest of the agencies that he's dealing with, so thank you to Chief for that. And also, if you attended the meetings last week, thank you very much. It's really important, to see the vision for, town, a beach, and what it could be. And with your voices, you get to have an active input into that. So thank you if you attended. And again, it's going to come up in July, so we encourage you to be there as well.
First, I would like to congratulate Gary Miller for being promoted to interim police chief. I think Gary's been in this department for a long time. And, I think that's a great thing for him to step up, and let's see how that goes and see what candidates we come down the road. Again, the Hill Group, I thought, did an outstanding job with the charrettes last week. A lot of information was provided, a lot of information was gathered by them, and I'm very interested to see what results come out of this process. Looking forward to that. My final thing is I've had two people today ask me how come we're still under water restrictions, because all this rain. And again, I explained that the water restrictions are because the Buckeye Lake is compromised. It has less water than normal. So no matter how much water is going in, it's still going over the end, and we still 40% less. So please bear with us as we work through this, and hopefully things will improve in the coming months. Thank you.
Stanford?
I have two things that I'd like to put out there. It's National Police Week, so and Peace Officers Memorial Day is actually May 15th. So the 11th through 17th of May is designated as National Police Week. So thank you to all our law enforcement officers, and if you see them out there in the town, make sure you thank them for their service. It's a tough job. Second, following right behind that, because it happens every year, May 18th through May 24th is National EMS Week. This year's theme is We Care for Everyone. And I think that's important because the folks, a lot of times, that are the ones in the ambulance are the ones that don't always necessarily get recognized up front. They get kind of lost in the wash of our public safety world. So, of course, holds a special place to me. That's what I used to do. So, thank you to everybody who serves and provides EMS services here on Beech Mountain, and for that matter, across the nation. Sit there.
My turn? Want to let everyone know that the, let's call it the Hysterical Society, the Historical Society is opening up for the season. So we're still looking for docents as well as subs that may want to just volunteer their time there, just stop by and say hello, because the exhibits are pretty amazing on all about Beech Mountain. In June, we're going to start trivia over at the Whistle Pig on Wednesday nights. So yours truly will be doing it if anybody feels like stopping by. And then the farmer's market is always one of the best places to go to stock up for the weekend if you don't feel like driving down to Banner Oak. So that's all I got.
What night is Whistle Pigs?
It's Whistle Pig trivia is Wednesday nights at 6 p.m. Mm-hmm. We're starting with horror movies.
So the city vision plan was Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. It was long days, ran from 9 to 4, 10 to 4. I'd like to thank these two councilmen and the mayor for attending.
I think that's aimed at us.
I was on a boat.
I was in Wilmington.
Stanford was on a boat for the past month, and our vice mayor was in Wilmington. But that was a really great event that was sponsored by the actually TDA. Thanks for the TDA for paying for it. It was really good. There was a lot of horsepower that was involved in this meeting. Maybe you guys, Stanford was talking about the National Police Week. Last week, I think there was like 20 gang members that jumped 5 New York City cops. A lot of people stood around with their hands in their pocket and watched them get beat up. You know, I hope that here on Beach Mountain, police probably don't want me saying this, but if that would happen here on Beach Mountain where it's an unfair scrap with our police officers, I hope some of our town folks would jump in and make it a fair fight. I appreciate what our police force does for Beach Mountain and protecting us. Other than that, thank you for coming to our town council meeting. And we're going to adjourn, but we have a closed session meeting, and I need a motion to go into closed session.
Second.
That's all my fault. All of it is fine.
I think it was more.
No.
No?
No, it was me. I had 20 minutes on that one item.
Did you
I
really?
timed it.
Well done. I'm gonna face some backlash, but.
I was hoping he was gonna take it.
That would come on, done.
We could have voted on it next meeting.
You going out?
Me?
Yes.
Yes. This looks so much better without all the pictures of all the councils.
I concur.
It's not so cluttered.
And I agree. You put one TV up over there somewhere and one TV up over here somewhere, and then Raleigh doesn't have to carry a table. Either that.
I have to bring this from station two.
Well, I was gonna say either that, or I bring you the rolling cart that I'm not using at Ski Patrol, and you figure out how to mount the TVs on it. That way you can slide it in the closet somewhere.
No, they have to go back to station.
Oh, they go back to station.
All right, I need a motion to reopen our council meeting.
Second.
I need a motion. All right, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you all.